Hello, everyone. Welcome to an action-packed extreme edition of
Aaron, don't lie to the people.
Okay. Welcome to another wacky edition of ARG where we talk about some crazy failed handheld. Is that what you wanted me to say?
I want you to be honest with the people, Aaron.
I'm Amigo Aaron, joined by a man who's suddenly become the most honest man on earth. I give you the Brent.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I bring you only the truth.
Gosh. Listen. We've faced tougher times in today's subject and made it through looking great. And how can you not look great? And he's awesome. Bam, pop that thing. The Dick Smith Electronics, a wonderful gift. We love these things. We love them, and we had to wear them. So, as much as we love the Dick Smith not involved in today's episode.
Well, he might have sold these.
Not for long. we spun the wheel. We made the deal, the crazy deal, the extreme deal, if you will. And this week, Brent, we're going to be playing games on the Cybiko XTREME. Bam, make the symbol. Just like the gangsters. It's the Cybiko XTREME, y'all. Now, Brent, since you did all the research on the Cybiko XTREME, I got to ask you, what did you think? What made you put this on the wheel? What when you were researching pie pieces to put things on the wheel, what drew you to the Cybiko XTREME?
That's a very interesting topic, Aaron. I said, what Russian handheld made an incredible splash in the year 2000, 2001, 2002 era? And I just found it and said, okay, let's try this.
I knew it. For someone who's a truth teller, you've been drug out in the light, my friend. You just randomly picked this because you're a goof. Well, by God, when he randomly picks stuff, we still have to pick out games for that sucker and play him. And that's exactly what we did this week. Yeah. Now, listen, we're burying the Civico here. But I'm going to tell you, this thing's actually got an interesting backstory, Brent.
Yes.
As you know.
In a slightly different time, we would all have
right.
These.
Well, I don't know about that. So let's talk.
No, we
would.
Talk
about now. You can't talk about the Cybiko XTREME without talking about the Cybiko not extreme, because there was one.
The classic.
And there it is. If you're watching at home, the Cybiko not extreme. It's just called the Civico. Now, what is this thing? Now, it's funny you should call this a Russian handheld computer because that's only partially true. Okay, it's true, but it's sort of not true. So, this is a computer that was made and produced in Russia, but it wasn't made by Russians. Okay, that's I mean, it was, but it wasn't like the concept wasn't. This was the concept of a guy named David Yang. Okay, we'll get into more into David Yang here in a minute, but let's talk about the original Civico, and then we'll talk about its follow up. And it was followed up quickly, I might add. So, the Civico is a small handheld device, multi-featured device. They started testing in April of 2000, and they had a national rollout in May. So, testing went pretty well. So, what was this thing? Okay, it was a handheld device that had a QWERTY keyboard on it. Keys are in a kind of a wacky setup. They're small keys. All right, it was for text.
Yeah, and
that's right, it's for texting.
Yeah.
Okay, it featured. It also had an MP3 player add-on, and you could get a smart media card for it. It did a bunch of different stuff, including this was really nutty at the time. It had a localized chat feature with an antenna, so it could communicate with other units in a maximum of 300 meters, which is, in dumb guy American terms, that's about 0.2 of a mile. Okay, so if you're that's pretty close, by the way.
And something to stress on this, this feature was also something that the Nintendo DS kind of did with a thing called Street Pass. Yeah. It would go on Wi-Fi signals and find other DSs in the area that had the feature turned on, and it was sort of the same kind of thing. Another thing to note about that 0.2 of a mile thing, in the United States, they could not use the same radio signal. So that was actually cut down by half to 1/10 of a mile, which is still pretty interesting, pretty
is
cool.
I mean, you could take a note and tie it to a rock and throw it that far, and then hit the guy you're. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. But I mean, it was wireless messaging. So now, one thing it could do is, if you had a bunch of these Cybicos together, they could actually relay messages back and forth for longer distances. That's kind of neat. So that's not a bad thing. So, but mostly this was for texting and and also it played games. All right, and I say that in the loosest sense, which we'll get to, but it would play games, and they were fairly reasonably priced. You're looking about, I believe these things ran somewhere in the $150 to $140 range, and they dropped extensively after the opening, but they ended up doing pretty well. The first units anyway. Like, word on the street is the original Civico sold like 500,000 units. Not bad.
Yeah, I think it was in the first
and these
year.
Did not sell in Russia. So this would have been...
That's correct.
That's the ironic thing. They made these there, but they didn't sell there. So I thought that was kind of wacky. This thing was had that kind of 90s looking plastic, sort of like your fluorescent, the kind of those stupid Mac colors when they used to have the ugly plastic Macs that were all different colors. It's sort of what it reminds me of color wise.
Yeah. Do you know what they were designed after?
Not 100%. No, I don't think so.
Okay, the way this design was chosen was always targeted towards America and parts of Europe. That was going to be the target audience. And they said, especially the American audience, they love their Japanese gadgets.
That's true.
So this was actually designed to try to look Japanese. And the same thing with the name. The name was picked because it sounded Japanese. And if you go back and you look at the commercial,
which we will,
when it first came out, it has Asian actors talking about how awesome this thing is with real thick Asian accents, and it was trying to push that this was a Japanese and Asian device, and now all the kids are going to want it. Well, that was the angle they took.
It's a good angle because it is. If I didn't know the history of this thing, I'd think that same thing. By the way, for the tech heads in the crowd, this had an Hitachi H8S/2241 processor clocked at 11.0592 megahertz, and it also had a coproc in it, clocked at 4 megahertz to help with the RF communications. It came with 512K flash memory, and 256K RAM. Not too bad for a little gimmick. Brand. Those sold pretty well. So then, listen, when you've sold 500,000 of these bad boys, you know what's coming. You got to get extreme, and that's exactly what they did. They got extreme. Bam, there it is. It's the Cybiko XTREME. Now, as far as I can tell, these retailed... Oh, by the way, the original came in 5 colors: blue, purple, neon, green, white, black. There you go.
Sure, why
not? And you could also... They also had a USB charger. It had built-in battery, a whole 9 yards. So Cybiko XTREME is more of the same, basically. This was the second generation. This was released pretty quickly after the first generation. I think it was like 6 months. So it wasn't that long.
It was quick, yeah.
Yeah. This had the exact same processor, but it was running at 18 megahertz on this one. It also had that coprocessor I told you about. It had the same amount of flash memory, and it had a 1.5 meg of RAM. So this had more RAM in it.
It was basically the more everything.
Right. Like I said, it was okay. It says here it was launched about a year later. So this thing was bigger. It was probably, I would say probably just by looking at it without holding one, it looks like the design's a little bit better, easier to hold, but it's definitely bigger.
Now, do you know what this was modeled after?
This looks more like a conventional PDA or something.
Yeah. That's right. They hit the kid audience, right? And they I think they pretty much sold their market on that. And they were the Extreme was still targeted towards kids, but you could tell that they definitely went for more of a PDA style design maybe they were aiming for the mid and higher teens rather than, you know, the 13 through 14, 15-year-olds. And I think that this machine is a much, much better machine. The look, the feel, where they have the directional pads, you've got more room for typing. It is a bigger physical unit, and it is more capable. It has, you know, like you said, with the more RAM and the processor clocked at a higher speed. I looked at both at pretty extensive detail through emulation. Even the GUI and operating system for the Extreme is different, and it is much improved.
Now, so I wanted to get into this because I dug up an article, a long dead article on the internet about this, and what I found interesting was it sort of went into how these devices even began. So you heard us mention earlier that the guy that came up with these was a guy named David Yang. Okay, story goes, David Yang was in the hospital. Okay, and he imagined a device that would let him talk to other people in the hospital wirelessly that couldn't get out of their beds. Okay, that was the plan he came up. That was the idea he had. So he was a programmer, and he thought it was a good idea. And so he went and found someone to help him. And I love this connection, Brent. This made me so happy when I read this. He went and to found Civico. He had to have a partner, and that partner was Donald Wisniewski. Now, we've said that name before on this show. At the time, he was the vice president of marketing for V-TECH Industries. Bum, bum, bum. That's right. V-TECH.
Yes.
It reaches through all times, and it's back for more. And so these guys, of course, if you're at V-TECH and someone comes up with this idea, you're in. That's...
Heck yeah.
He was like, listen,
right
I want to make
alley.
A plastic gizmo with a bunch of electronic stuff in it. Bam, that's all I need to hear. Sign me up, brother. And so these two guys formed Civico. And like you said, the way they came up with it was they took the word cyber and then made it sound Japanese. That was their plan. Yep. And they also, why did they have this thing designed and made in Russia? Well, simple. It took less time. Much less time. I think they said the from concept to production was like 6 months or something like that. It was real quick to pull it out. and as the article says, no one in Russia could have afforded one of these when it was made because they were expensive. They weren't even offered there, and so it's kind of nutty. But this thing had the Extreme had a 55 button keyboard. That also included a directional pad and 7 function buttons. Now, we should talk about some of the gimmicks that Civico had. We talked about the wireless communication and the PDA. It did some it had your address book and all this jive. But one thing that they did was actually kind of smart. Is they had a web page and you could go and get all the games for the Civico for free. Like there weren't
applications.
There were no sold games. Like as far as I could tell, every game was free, and they had at least when I found. Now I found a download that had every game, all right, allegedly, and every app, but supposedly they had around 500 games, free games for this thing. And most of the stuff that ran on one ran on the other. In fact, maybe all of it. But that's still neat that they effectively, it was all, this is one of the few times in history where a hardware device is never, not the least bit about the software. It's all 100% the hardware. So, because normally they try to make their money on the software, but not this time around. They try to make it on the backside. Now, if the Civico regular, or classic as it's called, sold 500,000 units, I have not found any numbers on what the Cybiko XTREME sold. I'm guessing it didn't sell too many because they never made any more, and there's no, I couldn't find any recollection of how it died, basically.
Well, I can tell you how it died.
How's that?
The cell phone killed the Cybiko star, man.
Well, yeah, I would say you're right there.
That's it. When this was released, because you got to think it was from 2000 to 2002 was its quote unquote glory days, and a lot of teens didn't have cell phones because you had to also pay for the cell phone plan. You know, it was a monthly investment for parents who didn't want to do that kind of thing. Where this allowed you to have some of those texting, have some of those chat features. You know, if you and your buddy had one, and it was no monthly fee once you bought it, especially since all the games were free, all the applications were free. It was a purchase and own kind of thing. But as cell phone plans started coming down in price, phones started coming down in price, it eventually just killed the market for these things.
It is a neat concept, though, in all honesty.
I would have killed for one of these when I was a kid. In high school,
get this,
because I was using my TI-85 with a cord attached to another TI-85, and I wrote a chat program so I could chat with my classmates in class, and it was great, and we all loved it. You know, if we could have this thing wirelessly talking, you know, from one classroom to another, it would have blown my mind.
Well, you know, the Civico had what's called basically a Civico Basic that you could develop in. Of course, all the development stuff was free. They were giving it away. So really anyone could do anything they wanted on these. So you got probably a wide array. Now, I looked at some of the games, not that many. We'll get into that later. But you know, they were all over the map. I will say that. Something else I noticed on the Extreme, this is awesome. There's an LED on it, and when someone else on the Civico gets within range, that light comes on. So
yeah,
it's almost like a Civico detector, you know, that's on top of these things. Of course, the Extreme could also play MP3s with the add-on. It had a memory expansion. I think it's like a 1 meg memory expansion on it, and it had both of them had a USB port you could use to charge this thing, and you could also use it to hook to your computer. And here's something wacky. If you had this thing hooked to your computer, you could surf the internet on the Civico. Don't know why you'd want to, but I guess maybe you could go to the store that way. But I thought that was kind of...
You know what else you could do?
What's that?
This had a MP3 plug-in.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mentioned it.
You could slam that bad boy in the expansion slot, load up your MP3s, and you'd be good to go.
Of course, that's sold separately, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I mentioned that the first one was $150. I believe the Cybiko XTREME sold for $140 at retail, so slightly less. I should also mention that when you see these in the stores, they came in as blister packs, so they were just hanging off of a hook, you know, which sort of, if you saw old MP3 parts, so that's the way that a lot of that stuff sold, you know, was just in those packs. But I also saw some boxed versions. I don't know if there was a difference, you know. But really unusual devices. I have to say, when this came up on the wheel, I expected absolute garbage. But from all accounts, these things were pretty, not only were they built okay, but they were actually pretty popular. A lot of people don't like the keys, especially on the Civico, because they are, aside from the fact that they're rubbery and small, they're also they're at a weird slant. You know what I mean? And so that was something else they sort of fixed on the Civico. But I mean, if you're marketing these to kids, small buttons that are at slant, hey, the kids will be fine. They got small hands. I mean, there's no problem there. So, with all that said, you know, it's funny. Normally, when we have these real obscure systems, Brent, we actually have trouble finding games for them. But this had 500 games. I'm sure you found the exact same pack of ROMs I did. But let's not mince words here. The games were this is not a Game Boy. Now they compare this graphically. I saw a couple of people compare this to like somewhere in the middle between a Game Boy and a Game Boy Advance. You know, that's I mean, theoretically, probably in theory, that's possible. And like I said, it does have sort of a directional pad and sort of has buttons for gaming. Of course, we didn't get to play this on the original device, so I don't know what it would have been like. But well, we'll let you decide as we go into the games we picked. But I'm going to let you lead the charge this week. What do you have for us on this particular item? What'd you pick from the 500 games?
I went with the only thing that can possibly be emulated on an extreme handheld, and that's pinball. So we did a little bit of Pinball Pro action, And well, let me tell you something. It won't take long.
We did. Say that again. What did we do with Pinball Pro action? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What an idiot you are. To review this.
No.
It stinks.
That's review over.
Yeah. This is a single pinball game with one machine, and there's no scrolling. You have your flippers at the bottom that go from a 45-degree angle to a 90-degree angle left and right, so it almost looks like they're touching. And it plays bad. The physics are bad. It does have one neat feature. One thing that I actually really enjoyed with this was whenever you went, there were mission holes, for lack of a better term. There were spread out across the board. Whenever you went into one of the holes, it would play an animation of you basically trying to emulate a DMD screen, and that was kind of neat. It made me want to, at least before I quit playing, it made me want to get in each of the holes to see what each of the animations were. And you know, some of them were kind of crappily done, but there was a dinosaur animation where the dinosaur is kind of screaming, roaring its head. That was kind of...
I like screaming better. That makes more sense to me. He's screaming, "Get me out of here! I want to be extinct."
It was... I mean, I'm not going to lie. Is this a good game? No. Are you going to emulate... wonderful handheld to play pinball? No. This game looks like something that you would download off of a website for free, and that's exactly what it was. You might load it up literally out of curiosity, and then you're going to be done. And that's what it is, and that's really what 95% of the games on the Extreme were. If you got a good puzzle game, if you got a good, well, really, that's it. I think puzzle game was the only games on here that were interesting enough to want to play for more than 10 minutes. Did you have the same experience?
I liked your
Aaron?
original assessment of this game. The very first thing you said about it, it stinks. This
does stink.
This is
yes.
Like if you compare this to, like, say, the Game Boy / Game Boy Advance, like in the middle, the Game Boy would come and beat you up. Like Mario would come to your house and try to kill you for saying that. Yeah. This is a pinball game that would never ever.
Yeah, no one in their right mind would say that about this game.
No, they certainly would not. Hold on a second, let me adjust these. The truth of the matter is, it's no good. I mean, it's a bad effort, frankly. I couldn't find hardly. I mean, I found just the scarcest footage of this. And what I should have done was just recorded myself, but that would have been also scarce, because I gave this very little attention. No good. No, a fail. I know you love pinball, and I'm assuming you just picked pinball and you thought to yourself, pinball, they can't screw that up, And you can imagine playing this on that screen with those controls. I mean, the controls probably weren't a problem. It would just be not good. Not good.
It was not good. I mean, of the things that I tried on the Civico, none of them were good. They were free.
Yeah.
And that's really, that's
the
what you're
funny
up
thing
against.
About the Civico. We talked about what a cunning idea it is to give away all the games. Here's what happens when you just have people randomly program games that you give away. Because when you're giving all the games away, effectively, it means all the games have no value. You know what I mean? And so it's not like a big programming outfit's going to come to town and be like, "Hey, let's go for the Cybiko XTREME," and they're not going to do that, So this was a El Duddo Grande, So a big fail
I
on
agree.
That one.
This was probably the second worst game we've ever reviewed on the show.
What was the first worst, if I can ask?
That's that CDI game that literally caused me pain. Microcosm, I think.
Now,
what was it, Aaron?
that was actually a CD32 game, Microcosm.
A 32
That's
game,
the worst game? You got to be joking.
Yeah. No, that game was the absolute worst game I've ever played in my entire life. Mind. It caused me all the more reason to like
it. That's good for me. I enjoy that.
I would rather play this horrible pinball game for an hour straight than that game.
Well, all that said, let's get your stinkeroo out so we can bring in the big dog here. All right, because I've got something to say about this. So I actually did a little research before I picked a game. I didn't just pick one at random, like a goofball. And of course, the fruits of my labor were Blazing Boards. Just the name is better than yours. Yes. It's Blazing Boards, my friend.
It is.
So what is Blazing Boards? Blazing Boards is a skateboard game. Now, I've found some reviews, believe it or not, of this. And one reviewer said, you could compare this game to Tony Hawk Pro Skater because of all the tricks. But I think everyone will agree with me that the gameplay in Blazing Boards surpasses all other games for the Civico. That shows you how good this sucker is, man. No, so...
And I don't even agree with that. There was a racing game that had 3D graphics. It was all vector graphics. But the cars properly scaled, and it was actually pretty interesting. I would say that was the best thing I played for the system.
I will say, I thought this was a tour de force graphically for the Cybiko. And this will play on. This plays
it was pretty good. It was much better
on both
than
Civico and Cybiko XTREME. Now, I've had the luxury of actually seeing this being played on an actual Civico, and it does look much worse than it does here by emulation. I mean, of course, it's on that little screen. And the one thing that's funny, the Cibicos weren't renowned for their screen quality. Ironically, it's okay. Basically, it's not going to blow you away. So, Blazing Boards. Released in June of 2003, and as far as I can tell, developed by Civico and of course put out by them. So this is one that looks like someone there actually developed, not just some schlub back in the past.
Well, most of the games were like that.
Yeah. So if you've ever thought to yourself, what would it be like to skateboard down the Death Star Trench? This is the game for you, because that effectively is what you're looking at. You're skateboarding down what I would assume is a long alley, and off in the distance you see the city skyline of New York, or some city. Let's go with New York. Oh, actually, I think it's Chicago. It doesn't matter. So what you do on this is you're skating down and you're doing tricks as you go down the alley, and occasionally you will see ramps. You will also see rails that you can go on. This is what they say, because I couldn't pull it off. They say there are 35 separate tricks that you can do. One thing I noticed about this game is that I would jump up in the air, wiggle around like an idiot, and it would say it would say a name, Ollie or whatever. I do the same thing again, and it would look like almost the exact same animation. It'd be like Triple Lindy, like what? So
well, to be fair to the untrained eye, not that I have a trained eye, but a lot of skateboarding tricks have subtle differences that you wouldn't really notice.
Well, I would, because I'm a seasoned skateboard viewer from back. I am.
Aaron, you just said you did a Lindy.
Well, I wanted to be cute there. Okay. So as you go down through here doing your tricks, you'll occasionally come across an obstacle. As far as I could tell, there were spikes occasionally.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when you go down an alley. There's also
horizontal bars.
There's also just like when you're going down the trench on like the third level of Star Wars, the arcade game. They'll just have those random walls stuck out. There's some of those. Yeah. They made it. They made their way here as well. So that happened. But that's the game. You complete the track and move on. Now, this game apparently could even had they had competitions with it. If you look at the opening of this, there's a Best Buy, some kind of Best Buy tie-in I don't know what it is. I couldn't find out. But Best Buy is an American electronics store. It's still around. So I guess they're
the Dick Smith.
Yeah, they
of
are.
America,
except not nearly as cool. But they just had some sort of tie-in on this. I like the fact that they actually tried to, let you see what kind of actual graphics this thing could put out. I'd say this is probably towards the high end of what you could do graphically on the Civico, but it looks pretty good. Does it play great? Not really. Oh, I should also mention that occasionally you'll come across, not occasionally, a lot of these, a box with a B on it. Those are your burning boxes. If you get enough of those, much like
those are your blazing boxes.
Well, whatever you want to call them. Once you get enough of those, your skateboard sets on fire, just like NBA Jam. And that's when you get the big points. Well, it's kind of cool, and it's also got like you race against the clock, and after you get so far, you'll get a checkpoint, and it'll give you more time. So this is an actual game. It's not like pinball where you're just like flailing like an idiot. This is a legitimate game. It's true, Brent. And if you're going to play anything on the system, this is one of the games I would try. I will say there's a game if you watch the menu system, as whoever was putting this together, there's a game on here I think it's called Men's Washroom 2.
No, that's garbage.
No, I would love to say, did you try that?
Yes.
You did try Men's Washroom 2.
It's Breakout. Yeah, it's Breakout.
What's with the name on that?
It just has
it's got a toilet as its icon.
And urinals, and those are the targets for your Arkanoid clone.
Why would you make your game based on that?
Because it got you to remember it.
Well, it worked. I will say. Now, I want to say that Blazing, of course, the icons or the logos I've got here in front of these games, I sort of made these up, I'll be honest with you. But Blazing Boards was actually a surf. It's a surf competition, I believe is what it was. So I don't know if that's where they nicked the name for this one. Of course, your name. Let me tell you something. Pinball Pro. If that's what happens when you turn pro, man, I'm going to stay in the ranks of the amateurs.
Now, I want to say a few things about this game.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
A few things that you didn't mention, or you didn't mention well enough.
Oh, take off.
As you're going through, there are rail systems that you can slide down. And to do that, you basically just have to run into the rail. And once you get on the rail, you can do different motions and do different tricks on the rails. And the different tricks give you different points. Right, different grinds. You also, when you ollie, your jumps, if you hit a ramp just perfectly, it might have just been my mind playing tricks on me, but I felt like if I ollied right at the top of a ramp, I got more distance. And just like when you're on the rail, wiggling the joysticks and hitting the buttons will have you do different board flips and, again, raise your score. But at the heart of this, it's a race game.
Yeah.
Your goal is to try to get to the bottom, to the finish line as quickly as possible and make points along the way. So hitting those obstacles is really brutal because it almost always knocks your skateboarder down, which kills all your momentum.
Yeah.
I could actually see playing this because the system encouraged you to take your high scores online. And I believe it had a functionality for that. So you could get the high scores that were out there.
It even talks about getting a move of the week. Did you see that? And so I would be interested to know if they actually had additional moves that they would give you every so often, which that's kind of a neat feature, if that's true.
Yeah, it is. So I could see where this would probably be among the top games for the system, because it looks like they tried to bring the community in, give them something to shoot for with the high score stuff. And the game is okay. I definitely played this for longer than I played pinball. Not that that's saying much.
10 seconds.
But this is, this is an actual game that if I saw it for, $1 on a phone store, I would understand why someone might pay that.
Yeah.
unlike pinball, which you couldn't pay me to play.
No, absolutely not. No, there's definitely a game here. I found it okay. It does show you that this thing, if you think about the games you were playing on your old flip phone, this is way better than Uno and stuff that I was playing. So, they've got something. I think, and of course, they had success, so it's not like they completely bombed out. But this game, they put forth some effort. I thought it was okay. You're going to be stunned to find out that there were very little reviews on this, Brent. I did find.
Oh, yeah. None of this stuff could get reviewed.
Oh, I found a review, and it was overall score.
Yeah, but what did that guy say? It was better than Tony Hawk?
No, he said it was the best game on the system, and he did give this a 10 out of 10. So
of course he did.
That's high praise. And like you mentioned, I like the fact they were trying to build a community around this thing. One would wonder if they were what kind of community you build on Men's Washroom 2. They would. That. Probably not the same. Not a community I want to be involved with.
The same.
A community that I do want to be involved with, one that's based around Lady Luck herself. And you know which community I'm talking about. It's wheel time. Bam.
Oh, okay.
Bam. Now, let me
tell you. Can you tell me, Aaron, can you remind me what you added to the wheel this week? Because I have forgotten.
I sure can, my friend. This week I added the Game Master Systema 2000. Another one, because you picked all these. I don't have a choice here. The Game Master Systema. That's not system. That's Systema 2000. And then our retro piece, harkening back to one of our most popular episodes, Brent, because everyone loved it so much. We've put the Xbox back on here. The Xbox. Brent.
Oh no!
I'm gonna spin this sucker. Man, let's see what we get.
The wheel is full of landmines. Please be a locked piece.
And the winner. Oh boy. Here it is. The winner this week, the NASCOM 1 and 2. Brent, what can you tell us about the NASCOM 1 and 2?
The what?
The NASCOM 1 and 2. The NASCOM.
I don't know.
You don't know, do you? Right here.
I don't know at all.
What's that say,
Please
everybody?
let the pain stop.
The NASCOM 1 and 2. You're an idiot. You've screwed us again.
No, I don't think that's one of my pieces. That's one of the older pieces.
No, Brent. This is one of your pieces. That's your font. That's your piece. NASCOM 1 and 2. It's from 1977, Mitsuyama says. You know it's gold. You are a dullard.
Wow.
You are a complete
fool.
Well,
at least we're going from one extreme to the other.
Yes, we are. Brent, I want to touch, before we tag off here, I want to talk about just a little thank you to everyone who came around last night for International Computer Club. It was a lot of fun. We had a good turnout. Even you came around at one point, stunningly. We had a good time. We learned.
I was there for the whole thing. Yeah, I was here for the whole thing. It was excellent.
We talked about
everyone's presentations were incredibly interesting.
Yeah, we talked about 3D printers with Dave. We had we had a look at Edvin's man cave, including all his drinking buddies and his homemade brewski still he's got in there. We had a great look at some of Nick Marite's games and what he had upcoming. His new game for the Coco looks really good. It's a Pipe Mania style game. Curtis showed us Nitro 9, the really cool graphical GUI based Coco front end, operating system. We had a very interesting look at a Raspberry Pi project with Flack making movie poster TVs. That was neat. We had Boat trying to get some help. Here comes Boat. He needs help with his Amiga 1000, and we had that as well. A good time was had by all. We learned a little bit about the Mister from Graham, so I thought that was pretty cool. It was a good time, man, and I really hope that everyone that came had a good time. I'll be putting this thing up for everybody to view on YouTube sometime in the next few days. But thanks to everybody that made it possible. It was a the luckiest broadcast of my life, though, getting out of this thing fairly unscathed. So I was pleased at the way it went down, Brent. Brent, do you have anything you want to discuss, or do you want to give any shout-outs here as we close this sucker down?
Well, one thing I want to mention real quick, I just did a little bit of research on the NASCOM, and apparently it is a 1977 kit computer. So that will be fun.
Now, is this an emulatable machine, Brent? And does it have games?
Yes, 47 games, and the emulator apparently was updated this year.
All right.
So we'll see how that goes. Here in chat, we got Frodo, we got Bob Retto, Dave. We've got Curtis, Picard, Mitz, Hermsky stopped in, Brian, Z9K9, and let me throw it down to Paul Kitching was in, Zerg Glub. Let me find some of our lurkers real quick to shout out. Jost80 and Re1 Yick.
Very good. Re1 Yick in the house. So next week, Brent, the NASCOM 1 and 2, and I pre-hate you. I will say that. Let's take this thing to the bank, my friend. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for stopping by, and until next week, have a NASCOM day.
Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Quick shout out to all of our YouTube subscribers and Twitch followers. A special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector graphics and BartBit for our amazing music. Would you like to keep ARG spinning for as little as $1 a month? You can do so at anchor.fm/ARG-presents. Supporters get entry into the Amigos Discord channel, as well as their name called out in the credits. Supporters like these fine folks: Z9K9, Anthony Jarvis, Graham W. Vetke, Terry Howard, Gary Heather, John Schaller, The Slow Norris, Frodo NL, Steve Rasmussen, Chris Folds, Mitsuyama, Retroalgy, Hermsky, John Dackman, and Jerry Dennington. Don't want to explain another credit card bill? That's okay too. You can help us out by leaving us a positive review on Spotify and Apple iTunes. Have an idea for a wheel piece? Send it to us at argpresents@mail.com. We record live every Sunday at 9 a.m. EDT on Twitch. Hope to see you there.